Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited you're joining us today. Look, we are taking something that might honestly seem a little tedious at first glance, complex physical asset management, and we're transforming it into a simple, highly actionable playbook for property managers. If you manage commercial properties, you absolutely know that terrible sinking feeling of a surprise pothole appearing, or worse, a sudden slip and fall claim landing on your desk. Well, today, we are going to fix that.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the anatomy of pavement, maintenance versus complete reconstruction, concrete and trip hazards, navigating ADA compliance rules, and finally, your pavement legal liability. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The anatomy of pavement. Understanding your assets. Right, so before we talk about capital budgets and legal liabilities, we really need to set the stage by looking at what we're actually driving and walking on every single day. What is asphalt really? Well, it's simply a mix of aggregate, rock and sand, bound together by liquid asphalt cement. But here is the secret that trips up so many property managers. The true structural strength of a parking lot is not what you see on the surface, it's what is buried underneath. The compacted base is doing all the heavy lifting. If that base fails, the whole surface fails. And here is the harsh truth. Water is your asphalt's absolute biggest enemy. No question. It is actively trying to destroy that foundational base layer we just talked about. Poor drainage accelerates cracking, heaving, and base failure by 2 to 3 times. So the crucial point is this. If you are walking your property and you see ponding water, literal warning bells should be ringing in your head. Let's trace the natural aging process of your asset. A well-maintained commercial asphalt lot can easily survive 20 to 30 years. But if you neglect it, it's going to fail in 10 to 12. Maintenance is the ultimate multiplier here. You go from day 1 brand new to needing a seal coat around year 5, hitting fair condition requiring repairs at year 10, dropping to poor condition needing an overlay at year 15, until total failure and reconstruction at year 20.
Section 2. Maintenance versus complete reconstruction. Pennies versus dollars.
This brilliantly illustrates the massive financial difference between catching a problem early and waiting for the whole thing to fail. The financial chasm here is just huge. Maintenance, things like crack sealing for cracks under an inch wide or patching isolated potholes, costs you literally pennies, usually between 25 cents and $2 a square foot. But if you wait until that alligator cracking spreads across large areas and the base layer completely fails, you are looking at full reconstruction. Deep overlays or full remove and replace scenarios cost $4 to $10 or even more per square foot. It is quite literally pennies versus dollars. Now, one of your very best maintenance tools is seal coating, but I want you to shift how you think about it for a second. It is not just cosmetic. Think of it as sunscreen for your pavement. It's a great way to look at it. It seals those surface pores against water, UV rays, and petroleum-based fluids like oil and gas. It doesn't add structural strength, but it profoundly protects the strength that is already there. Timing is absolutely everything here. You want to apply your first seal coat about 1 year after new paving, and then repeat it every 3 to 5 years. But please, hear this warning loud and clear. Never, ever apply a seal coat over failing, heavily cracked pavement. It doesn't fix the structure, it just hides serious defects and can actually accelerate the failure. Freshly coated bad pavement is just a complete disaster waiting to happen. Section 3. Concrete and trip hazards. Managing the risks. Okay, we're shifting gears a bit. We're moving from asphalt parking lots to concrete sidewalks, curbs, and the massive, massive risks they pose if ignored. I need you to burn this number into your memory. 1/4 of an inch. Just a tiny 1/4 of an inch offset caused by a tree root or slight soil settlement is fully actionable in most California jurisdictions. Plaintiff attorneys basically have a built-in radar for this exact measurement. And why does that tiny 1/4 inch matter so much? Because $50,000 is the average slip and fall lawsuit settlement. Just let that sink in. $50,000. And that often stems from just a single, slightly lifted concrete panel. Catching this early and doing grinding or panel replacement costs an absolute fraction of what a lawsuit does. You simply have to inspect your entry points, your fire lanes, and any place where trees are planted near your concrete. Now, what's really interesting about this is understanding that concrete isn't one size fits all. Standard parking lot concrete is engineered for passenger cars, sitting around 3,000 psi compressive strength. But if you manage a distribution center or if you have loading docks, an 80,000-pound semi-truck is putting down 20 to 40 times the load of a regular car. Standard concrete will utterly fail under that repetitive stress.
You need heavy-duty engineering. That means a minimum of 6 inches of depth, 4,000 psi strength, and proper steel or fiber reinforcement. For sure, do not use standard specs for heavy-duty environments.
Section 4. Navigating ADA compliance rules, creating safe harbors. Your physical assets don't just have to be structurally sound. They literally have to follow strict accessibility rules. And there are serial litigants out there constantly scanning commercial lots for technical violations. Here are the most common ones that get property managers sued. Faded striping, cracked curb ramps, improper cross slopes that drift over that 2% maximum, and missing those bumpy yellow truncated dome detectable warnings. And remember, actually, this is crucial. Even just restriping an old lot can accidentally expose you to new compliance counts if you aren't perfectly up to current code. The math of striping is incredibly specific. For standard accessible spaces, you need a 9-foot stall paired with a 5-foot access aisle. But for van accessible spaces, that 9-foot stall needs an 8-foot access aisle. And here is a huge tip to take away. Signage must actually be mounted at the proper height. Just painting the handicap symbol on the asphalt is not enough. Section 5. Your pavement legal liability, the cost of neglect. We are tying physical asset management directly to a property manager's ultimate fear right now. I love this quote from the source material, and I want you to really, truly absorb it. Deferred maintenance is not a savings. It's a transfer of risk to yourself. Plaintiff attorneys and insurance carriers are looking incredibly closely at your maintenance history. If someone gets hurt, the legal test they use is called notice. Did you know or should you have known about the defect? If you've been deferring maintenance just to save a few bucks on the budget, you are practically handing plaintiff attorneys Exhibit A. Let's move to and see how this builds a proactive capital budget life cycle. Because if you treat your pavement like this, you absolutely win. Years 1 and 2, your initial seal coat. Years 3 to 5, crack sealing and applying your second seal coat. Years 6 to 10, selective patching where needed. Years 11 to 15, evaluating a thin overlay. Moving up to year 25 is a major overlay, until you finally hit full reconstruction and reset the entire clock. This perfectly proves that the early years are incredibly cheap to maintain, and the late years are devastatingly expensive if you skip the early steps. So how do you protect yourself? You build what we call a legal defense toolkit. You need a massive paper trail. Documented inspections, work orders, and invoices all prove that you are actively managing the asset. And for ADA compliance, hiring a CASP, that's a certified access specialist, to inspect your lot gives you a literal legal safe harbor. It proves to the courts you are making good faith efforts to comply, which greatly reduces your exposure to serial lawsuits. I want to conclude by leaving you with this provocative question. Think about your properties right now. When was the exact last time you officially documented a pavement and concrete inspection? Really think about it. If you can't remember, or if the answer is honestly never, you are carrying uncompensated risk right now. Take this playbook, walk your property this week, look for that ponding water, look for those tiny 1/4-inch trip hazards, and start planning. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it helps you protect your assets and your budget. Catch you next time.